And yeah, it really shows the power of our app chains. In this case, we're also discussing rollups, and I'm super curious what our panelists will have to say about that and comparing those two. So without further ado, I'd like to call the moderator on stage, please. And the panelists, which are Manfred from Gno.land, Larry from Grug, Reece from Rollchains, and Benyakoub from Rollkit. Oh, sorry.
It's Yarik, yeah.
Ah, Yarik. Well, welcome. Have a seat and let's go.
Oh, wonderful. All right. First of all, I'd like to thank Interrupt for putting this Nebular Summit together. Super excited to host this panel today on Appchains and custom rollups with a very spicy lineup to tackle the topic. Without waiting more, I would like you to introduce yourselves first, and then we'll dive straight into the topic.
Hi, my name is Larry. We are building a new execution layer called Grug. So if you're launching a new app chain, you can possibly choose Grug as your execution and pick your favorite consensus to go with it.
I'm Reece. I work at Rollchains and Strangelove, and we build good UX tooling for building out your custom layer ones or rollups and making that super simple to do and upload that to TIA and improve the Cosmos overall.
Hi, my name is Yarik. I work at Rollkit, and our goal is to empower developers to create new types of rollups easily, as it would be launching a smart contract.
Hi, I'm Manfred. I work at Gno.land, where we try to create the most interoperable language, where you can interop multiple contracts in the same chain, but also between chains.
Okay, cool. Would you make a case for building your own app chain today in a space where it is actually possible to deploy your business logic on a highly scalable chain that has, let's say, fee markets? Or, bootstrap your own rollup, basically?
I would definitely say that level ones, we still want to create those. If you want the full control and you don't want to have, let's just say Celestia went down and you're rolling up to them, you still want to have your own network. And that's been important for institutions who, they want to run it in-house. They don't want to have a roll-up where if they were to, they would roll it up to themselves on their own infrastructure. And that just doesn't make sense. So I think that it definitely does make sense to launch your own L1s, but also have the opportunity to run a roll-up if your application can benefit on that since you're already on chain anyway.
Probably I can add that with Rollkit, for example, it's easy to try bootstrap it with the Rollkit, with the rollup, because it's easy and fast, like maybe in a week or maybe a few days. And then maybe if you want, you can switch back to, if we're talking about comment BFT, you can just replace Rollkit with the comment BFT. It doesn't make any sense, right? But theoretically, if you have some stakeholders which would require you to have your own consensus and validator set, you can just do this without any coding. You just replace. That's it.
And I think the main reason to launch new chains, app chains, with or without rollups, is for scalability first, and then specialization. With the rise of smart contracts, maybe it will be more about just scalability and specializing some token or peer-to-peer network. But basically, as the two main reasons.
Yeah, I think some applications, it just depends on the specific application. Some apps are more better, be in a general purpose execution layer together with all the other apps. For some apps, they're just better alone, being their own app chain. Maybe some apps have special requirements of the layer one they are on. Being an app chain is super easy to customize those for yourself.
Okay, would you mind casting some light on the different features and let's say elements that you have in your tech stack that reduce the cost of actually bootstrapping the chain and making it reasonably secure?
I can go first?
Yeah.
So at Grug, we have, so one of the design principles we have is that if there is something we expect people may want to customize, that part is abstracted as a smart contract. So for example, gas fee is managed by a smart contract. Every user account is a smart contract. The chain's native token is a smart contract. Only those components that we don't expect anyone ever to want to customize, those things are native Rust code embedded in the chain. But everything else is a smart contract. So anytime if you want to customize certain things on your chain, you don't have to delve into the chain level code. All you need to do is to write a smart contract. And anytime if you want to change your things, you don't have to hard fork the chain, just upgrade that contract, and that's it. So I think this makes it super easy to tailor the chain to the experience you want.
What we do at Rollchains is in our tool called Spawn, we allow the user to select even things that we may not agree with is the best for them. We want developers to build out what they think is best for them. And we just give the opinion of do we enable that by default or not. And so allowing them to select what they really do want, whether that be different types of consensus, proof of authority, proof of stake, or interchain security, which is kind of like a level 1 rollup, or a rollup itself directly to Celestia, allowing them to decide that on their own, and we just give them those options, and then they can customize that as we give them. So give them a same default, and then allow them to be a power user after that to fit exactly what their use case is.
Well, in case of Rollkit, we do have customizability as a feature as well. So for example, as Manfred said, like you can just don't touch, for example, the engine and just improve your app, which is a smart contract. With Rollkit, for example, you can play with different VMs. For example, we can use the Grug. Then we can, if you ABC A++ compatible, we can use some custom WASM or just Cosmos SDK app. So the feature, you asked about features. One of the features is the modular architecture, and in terms of software, it's also like a lot of decoupling stuff. So you can you can play with if you don't have, you just starting, you can play with the local DA, which is a local implementation of data availability. Then you can switch to Avail or Celestia. So everything's it's basically giving developers an easy way to go to market really fast, maybe in a week. And then if they want more, they can just change components and test it.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Okay. And I think that an interesting thing that we see with the emergence of EigenLayer and other solutions is a different notion of the cost of security to actually, let's say, to make an arbitrary system secure. Let's put it this way. What kind of options do you offer to any prospect to get maximal security while ensuring the minimal overhead, if that makes sense?
For us, security is no longer a problem, really, in crypto, where we've got all this money, we have all this restaking. It's really more what other features can we add on top of that benefit the end user. So sure, we can have security to Avail and Sunrise and Celestia DAs and have Cosmos Hub interchain secure chains. You have all these billions of dollars, but really the focus should still be more apps. And so if your app is not using tons of DeFi, you probably don't need all that. Yes, it's going to be very cheap to do. You're adding complexity, and really the real cost is the developer time that's going into that. So really it's more, what features does, say, Sunrise have that Avail doesn't, that your chain can utilize, or something with Celestia, with RPCs, for example, and sharing that load with them, then that actually has a benefit more than just the direct security that you get of having that roll up there.
Yeah, so for us, Grug is just an execution environment. It does not concern security. However, it has a modular design, meaning you can put a number of different type of consensus beneath it. It can be Tendermint, it can be Rollchain. I'm not sure about Rollkit, maybe it can. Well, it can also be OP stack if you want to be a rollup with a centralized sequencer. You can also do that. Yeah, so it's up for your choice.
Well, as Reece said regarding the inheriting security from the DA, which is the case for Rollkit, one point to add is that we have a full node which would execute everything. So we offload the trust assumptions from the sequencing layer or centralized sequencer, let's say. So yeah, that's it. Basically, the main point is that it's inherited from the DA layer, the underlying L1, basically.
Yeah, basically you need to choose if you need more security or more feature or more speed. I think another example, which is not exactly rollup, but where you want something similar, is if you have like a light client that wants to get some Merkle proofs in practice. It's up to the client to decide if they want to be more up to date, etc. And we are building also very secure alternative to rollups with IBC, ICS. Technically, we can have the security with compromise or the features with less security, and it's just a question of choice on your needs. And I think at the end, the answer is a hybrid approach with a mix of everything depending on your case.
Yeah, Reece, you just mentioned that there are certain use cases that have higher security requirements or would ideally benefit from more security, and some that require less. What would be for high-value financial business logics and use cases, would it still make sense to go with a solution that does not inherit security from a very safe, let's say, yeah.
The way that I think about security is more like just an audit log. So for something like, let's say you're launching a proof of authority chain, this is something like Noble that's in the Cosmos where each validator has a set amount, everyone has an equal amount of like stake, if you want to think of it like proof of stake. It's important for them to have a backup log to something like a Celestia, for example, where you have that. Continuing to do that over and over, there comes a point where you're paying more than what you're actually getting, both in terms of cost directly to the DA layer as well as to the developers that are spending time focusing, handling those partnerships, continuing with that development work, and is it really worth it? So I think that as long as you have one DA layer, you're probably more than good. Going over and above that, it may be nice just from a marketing perspective to say that, hey, we're backed up here and the slashing mechanisms, et cetera, that are built on top of that. But I think that really if you just have one, that's probably good enough for most of us. And most chains may never need that. But I think it's a nice option and it's cheap enough and easy enough to do that today that it makes sense to do.
Okay. I would be curious to know also what other frameworks you like aside from your own when it comes to bootstrapping your own chain.
So the other framework is Ignite. This is built by the binary builder or by the All in Bits team, and it's what we based Spawn off of how to create that new chain. And so they're kind of the entrance into doing this. We took it to the next level. We're working with them and collaborating with them in the future, and then also now Rollkit I've not used yet, but I'm looking forward to using that soon and seeing how that works, and then incorporating some of those features into Spawn as well.
Yeah. So a few other players in the alternative execution layer space. Alternative means that is not EVM. Besides us, our movement, or just Move in general, there is Sovereign Labs, and there is Fuel. Their smart contract language is called Sway. They all have different characteristics. So yeah, big fan of them.
Well, personally, I would say Rollkit, maybe Fuel as well. We do have app on Ignite as well. Ignite is cool. I don't know.
And I don't know exactly, but I would target something about any new ICS evolution. I think this is where people are trying to fix this notion and to make it, for instance, if a hub provides these features for every consumer chain by default, I think we can basically have this notion of backups by default and then extend to light clients optimization or scaling, backup strategy, etc. So I would look for upcoming projects in the ICS evolution field.
Okay. And another thing that we have is a bunch of Rollup as a service frameworks popping up, a lot of different stacks that are like, let's say, easily forkable to deploy your own chain, your own Rollup. And that's a lot of block space. That there's an abundance of block space that you can create, an abundance of systems that you can create that spawn block space in an abundant fashion. Yet, there's one thing that's likely to happen is that a lot of this is not going to be used, and a lot of systems are going to end up vapor. What would a congestion event look like, according to you guys? I'm sorry, congestion. More of how would all these systems emerge eventually as they do not manage, for instance, to find a reasonable amount of users? If that makes sense.
Yeah, the main issue you bring up is really there's just a lack of applications. As we've been here this whole week, everyone is infrastructure. Everyone's building infrastructure. And really, we need more aggregators of this infrastructure to make it easy for applications to actually build, where I've got an idea, I'm a base level programmer, and how do I actually get started here? And I think that making it easier where there's multiple aggregator tools that don't have a added service tax on top of them, like where you're building on an L2, where you don't have that extra cost there, where you can just deploy your application, get users, try to find product market fit, and continue to expand in the traditional business way. That's really the problem that we need more of, and making easier infrastructure for all of these great solutions that we've seen over the past week into a single place that we can just select, I want to use this. And that's the way that we need to go forward with this, so that way more apps can come up, and more people can take their ideas into production and see them work actually.
Maybe I can add that it's been like at the era of L1s, this stage is passed already, so the adoption went really well, and as we all know, in 2010, for example, Microsoft started accepting Bitcoin, but when the congestion went up, it all like went down, so it was unusable. So that was a problem. So I think Rollups solves this problem, like Appchains should be easy to build, and yeah, I really think that what is lacking is really good use cases, aggregators as well.
I think one case I'm definitely looking for to build in the future is basically scalability, but not in terms of pure like composing a network of chains that make something great together, but mostly about making Web 2.0 style sharding, where a single chain can have several shards or subshards, having this notion of aggregator on all the part of the stack. So at the end, you can scale horizontally your chains, rely on ICS, Rollups, whatever, to basically have a tree of source of truth. And you have the top level Merkle proof, which is the aggregation of all your subchains, but in the same ecosystem. So Rollups can solve inter-VM collaboration, but I think in the same VM, especially if it can preserve type safety and everything, it can basically allow to have Web 2.0 style sharding, which is one of the ways to fix scalable blockchains.
I want to add one thing is that I think, as you said, the good proof system and the trade-off between security and scalability is the key. For example, you have inherited security from the DA layer. You don't have your own validator set, for example, just even in case with a centralized sequencer, and you have a good proofing system, for example, like fraud proofs, and that would be, I think that would be sufficient.
So that's, yeah, I could foresee some kind of consolidation event, and I just wanted to bounce back to Manfred's answer here, and I'll be very curious to know what's the agenda of Gno.land in order to scale the actual chain.
So the plan I was discussing is basically launching the first chain, which has a way to not only transfer simple primitive types, so basically being able to forward a call with a name, a function, and parameters, but re-providing the structures themselves, providing the proofs with Merkle trees. At the end, you are limited to the same VM or VM using the same standard, because technically we can also make a standard to have multiple VMs. But if you have this, and then you have a hub responsible to facilitate creation of subchains using the same mechanism, having this notion of top-down and bottom-up approach between the children, the parents' chain, and this notion of having to basically back up, I don't know, every 50 blocks or whatever. This is one of the ways to solve smart contract scalability in a single ecosystem. We still need interoperability with other chains, but in practice, it's easier to launch sub-network of 50, 100 new servers, keep the storage in a limited space. So yeah, this is one of the things we are looking for. We take a shortcut of just thinking about our own VM or own data type. In practice, implementation is a spec, so anyone can try to make an EVM compatible or COSM compatible storage. But if we achieve this, we are, on paper, able to scale infinitely. And in terms of timeline, first we launch the chain, then we launch the second chain, and then we integrate with a hub that will facilitate creation and link between a chain and the subchains. So next year, I don't know.
So yeah, like interoperability is definitely key in Gnosis roadmap in order to have it function the way you described. And I was really curious to to know, Yarik, how do you see the space change basically in the next coming years? As how you would basically position Rollkit in perspective against other like Rollup as a service frameworks out there?
Okay. Well, right now, first of all, Rollkit is the alpha stage, so we still do it. We started from the things that are easiest to implement, for example, centralized sequencer, right? But it will not end there. So we will have shared decentralized sequencing. We are doing this right now. We will have proof schemes. Like we are at the stage of the pessimistic state validity. So we execute it all. So this is also work in progress. What else? We have implementations for the different DA layers, like Bitcoin DA. Bitcoin is just the showcase, basically. Avail, Celestia is the ones we use. So what's the question was, how do I see in upcoming years Rollkit in the space of Appchains and...
yeah, I guess like other Rollup as a service frameworks, basically.
Rollups as a service, yeah. Well, I think this year we will find our product market fit, first of all. We have decent amount of clients and people start using it. I hope that we will do well in development and break through from the stage of using the centralized sequencer and what else? Let me think. Yeah, I think the key would be the adoption. Like if there is an adoption, okay, we're right. If like something in the industry pivots and something else is popping up, like we can predict that.
Yeah, you can adjust. I think that's yeah. I mean, any like extra remarks you guys would like to add? Yeah, I mean, I think that custom rollups and Appchains are like we're getting to a point where it just comes down to almost having the same thing to a certain extent. I mean, you have an Appchain with a proof of authority, or you have that rollup that settles on X that leverages either like validity proofs or fraud proofs in order to offer like X guarantees. It all comes down to becoming the same thing, and you're bound to just network effects or liquidity or just like some kind of vibe source that will make someone choose a system over another. So I'll be very curious to know what's your take on the future of all these rollup frameworks, and what are the key aspects that would make them stand out between each others? Because it's like, yeah, they're just a bunch of solutions, and yeah, it would be really nice to have your insights on what makes a rollup as a service system really relevant according to you, or just like, yeah.
I want to start. I want just to mention there was one thing that I think is for us is that the technology that is proven to be do well is, for example, Cosmos SDK. So being compatible with that is very important. So it's basically like plus on top of that, as long as other projects start to use some technology, they might be it might be of their interest to contribute to it. So it's also like a network effect. Stuff like, how it's called, engine API is something we also keep in mind instead of just ABCI++. Yes, sovereignty is important, like for some people, so they want to have their own like settlement. Okay.
Keeping it modular, allowing people to select what they really do want is extremely important, and letting them decide what is it that they want. There's going to be no winner takes all in a majority of these cases, and we want them to use what is best for their use case. And that's going to be specific on depending on what protocols they want to implement. So again, it's back to the app issue of whatever fits best for your app is where people are going to go for the rollup as a service. Of if this one is easier to use, then people are going to use that one. Even if it doesn't have all the features and bells and whistles that others do, people are going to gravitate towards what is easiest to get started.
Yeah, so I'm building a execution layer. So my thoughts on execution is it ultimately comes down to for certain apps, if these apps can only be built in this VM but not in that VM, then that is a differentiation factor. So if you're building a new execution layer, as I do, I would focus on that. So build some differentiating features such that there are applications that can only be built in yours but not in others. And that, in the long term, I think that's how execution layers are differentiated. And also another factor is you can have different philosophies. Some executions like EVM are fairly ossified, so they are predictable. You can be sure that any app you build today will still be running 10, 20, 25 years from now. But some other VMs may want to, well, standing on the bleeding edge to add all the new features, all the great ideas coming up. So it's kind of like Linux distro. You know, they are like Ubuntu, or Red Hat, which are enterprise focused. They are very stable, very predictable. And there's Arch that uses a rolling release. And everything is bleeding edge new. Yeah, so I think these are two factors you can differentiate from others.
I personally agree with both guys, and my addition would be that scalability is a very important piece, and lost the thought I had. Basically, adoption. Adoption would decide. What do I want to say? Yeah, people will build something, and the developer experience that they will have, like, if it's poor, like, people will not switch to it. Like, they would stick either with Web 2 or they would just know about the Ethereum only. So it should be like easy, I think. That's what we're trying to do, actually. If you go to our website, for example, you can see that we build like a CLI, which makes it super easy to launch a no-op state machine, for example, like just Rollkit start, and that's it. And then you can easily substitute this no-op state machine with, for example, custom WASM. For example, yeah, I think this is it. Like, that's my point.
Definitely an adoption. Adoption is what will make the framework win. I see two potential winners. One will be the one with the best UX and features, mostly for the client part. The other one could be the whole offer. So if you provide equivalent of Rollups, but with service behind, for instance, ICS, once again, associated with a hub, can secure your chain. So it's something you just don't connect because your users are asking. You just want to be secured. If you have built-in, if blockchains are secured by something that makes sense and implement this protocol, the protocol becomes a standard thanks to the adoption. So definitely I think adoption, whether it's good UX for a bunch of developers, maybe in very high-level languages, or because the whole service makes sense and is adopted by blockchains, and just it's a feature available everywhere you are looking for. So you can start connecting to chains because they all have the features built in.
Yeah, there's also like there's this question of total addressable market. If you choose to build on that, I don't know, layer 0 system, you know that you'll basically be able to tap into this liquidity or make your system available to a broader audience, or you can actually decide to go down the sovereign rollup path. Maybe you have some more customizability, like you can change some more parameters, but you're a bit enclaved. You can deploy Hyperlane module on top of your rollup and then get disenclaved, but you still don't have like the same kind of economic perspective by making that choice. And I'll be curious to know, as a last question, what do you think is the best way to place the cursor among these two extremes, between these two extremes?
I think we need the two extremes at the same time, actually. So when you are looking for ICS, definitely what we are offering is not just the solution, but a solution with the tokenomics, with something that just makes sense and is secured by everyone. Wants the protocol to be adopted, to work, to maintain it. So on this point, it's definitely about the service offer with everything involved and monitoring incentive. On the other field, it's basically just the best features, the best UX, the best adoption, and providing your software to the mass and expecting a market fit.
All right, any extra concluding remarks you would like to add, guys? All good? Well, I think that wraps up this panel. Thank you everyone for being here, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.